The boys are here. Good evening and Happy New Year to you all. Let's get cracking straight away. So many top names to talk about. We'll start with Manchester United and we'll start with Jadon Sancho. Dharmesh, what's the latest with him?
Yeah, first of all, there doesn't seem to be any sign of a reconciliation between Erik ten Hag, the manager, and Jadon Sancho following that very public falling out just 2 days after the summer transfer window closed. You remember when Arsenal played Manchester United, he publicly criticised Jadon Sancho and how he was training. Jadon Sancho then responded with a social media post which quickly came down, criticising the manager, basically accusing the manager of lying. Now, 4 months on, nearly 4 months on to the day from that game against Arsenal at the Emirates, we have a situation now where Jadon Sancho could be on his way out of Manchester United, and it is to a familiar destination because Borussia Dortmund, we are told, are interested in signing Jadon Sancho. Initial talks are thought to have taken place over a 6-month loan deal, so that will take him until the end of the season. You remember United actually signed Sancho from Borussia Dortmund 2021 summer transfer window for £73 million. His contract runs until 2026 and United have the option to extend that for a further year. What will be under discussion, you would think right now, will be a loan fee potentially and the salary situation, because he's on big wages. Can Borussia Dortmund afford to pay the full wages of Jadon Sancho, or will they hope that United can help them out and pay a portion of those wages as well? This could be a move that could work for everyone, though. Erik ten Hag obviously has fallen out with the player, so he will have a player that he's fallen out with no longer in the squad for the rest of the season. Jadon Sancho, who's not getting a sniff of any first-team action, let alone first-team training, he could potentially get first-team football. What could result in that is if he does play well and he was to go to Dortmund for 6 months and come back to Manchester United, then his market value will probably be a lot higher than it is as it stands right now. Or maybe, and it's a long shot, does he come back to United after those 6 months and maybe reintegrate into the Manchester United squad? However unlikely that would be. But as it stands, there is still plenty of work you'd think to be done on this deal. But Borussia Dortmund are now interested and are in talks with Manchester United over Jadon Sancho. And remember we said when Ineos announced that 25% investment, which is still to be ratified, of course, by the Premier League, they have to be consulted about any movements in and out of Manchester United. And we're told that that is the case. They have been consulted about this deal.
Darren, Dharmesh says it's unlikely that he could be reintegrated, but we thought Harry Maguire was never going to play for United again. We thought Scott McTominay was never going to play for United again. We thought Raphael Varane wasn't going to. So why can't Jadon Sancho come back?
I think he potentially can, but I don't think it will be under Erik ten Hag's tenure, to be honest. I think that has gone, in my opinion. I think to be left out of the team photo, which he was this season, I think that straight away tells you there's enough there that it's not happening.
He's in the calendar, though. He's January.
He is January, which suggests it's clever marketing because he could be gone in January. But evidence suggests, Mike, that if this deal isn't right for Jadon Sancho, he will sit here and just collect his salary. And I think I've sat here before with yourselves and said I feel this is financially motivated to a certain degree because he can sit there on the astronomical wages that he's on, not be that fussed about playing at the moment.
Yeah, but come on, you're a player. You want to play
I was never
football.
a player on that kind of money,
No,
I tell you that.
But you want to play football, don't you?
Of course you do, of course you do. But if you've got someone... We don't know what's gone on behind the scenes and what's actually said on a day-to-day basis. We only hear what's put out there in the media. There's a lot of back and forth between each player and manager by all accounts. And if he feels the deal isn't right at Dortmund for him to make the move, I would suggest that he would just stay there and say, well, you're treating me like this, you know. Would I have apologised? Perhaps, with the Euros coming up. Who knows what could have happened in that situation? Perhaps just swallow your pride a little bit. But on the flip side, it can't get any worse for Manchester United at the moment. And to say that he can't get in the team, even how bad that they've been, suggests there's no coming back from that. So if it was me, yes, I'd be looking at every angle to get out and go and play football again with a big tournament coming up in the national side at the end of the summer. But evidence suggests that he potentially may not do that.
It's interesting you say not under Eric Ten Hag? Is there a chance he might think, I might be here longer than you are, mate?
Again, I think a lot of players can feel that way. I think history tells you that players outlive managers in a football point of view. So he could think, well, it's not going too well. New manager comes in, show a little bit of a good attitude in training, get reintegrated. The manager says, I can get the best out of him. Manager looks fantastic if it all works. So history tells you that to a certain degree, you will outlive the manager, and he could just be sitting there on his astronomical wages, as we've said before, saying, well, as soon as you go, I'm going to be integrated back into this team.
United will want to be really careful with this whole situation, though, because as I mentioned, it was a £73 million investment that they paid out to Borussia Dortmund a couple of seasons ago. They have not had the best history, recent history, Manchester United, when it comes to recruitment, not only players coming in, but also recouping money. It's only recently, maybe they've had a few deals with Saudi Arabian clubs, but on the whole, you can't really think of players that have gone for big money from Manchester United. And it looks like whatever happens in this scenario, if Jadon Sancho was to leave Manchester United at some point in the next 6 months, 12 months, 2 seasons, it's not going to be for £73 million, you would think, unless he absolutely sparks the lights out in the next 6 months at Borussia Dortmund. But even then, you couldn't see a situation whereby United would be able to recoup anywhere near what they paid out.
But Mark, didn't we hear that United under Ineos would say, if we want to get rid of a player, we don't mind losing money, we just need to get the right culture in the dressing room?
I think that's going to be one of the first things that Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos do when they go into Manchester United, is get the structure right. They need to get the right people doing the right jobs and then look at how they can build from that. And that's going to be one of the key things to do. Manchester United fans will be hoping that that happens immediately in this window and they start splashing the cash. But we know that they're up against FFP, so therefore it's probably unlikely they're going to go and hit the transfer window, spend big bucks, let players go and revitalise that Eric Ten Hag side. It's probably going to take a good 6 months to just get their feet under the table, understand the mechanics of that great football club, put the right people in place and then have a more longer-term strategy about how they get Manchester United back to what Manchester United used to be.
Well, Dharmesh, can they splash the cash? Can United bring people in January?
2 different questions there, actually. Splash the cash? Probably not. Bring players in? Potentially. It's likely, as far as incomings are concerned, to be a quiet window for Manchester United, but they are looking at a couple of positions, we're told. In the striking department, if you go back to the summer, Rasmus Højlund, I think they wanted to bring him in alongside a more experienced striker as well, so that they could bed him in. But what in fact has happened is that Rasmus Højlund has just come in and he's expected to shoulder the responsibility of the attacking responsibilities at Manchester United. So maybe a striker, be that on loan, or maybe try and find a bargain. There's talk of the Stuttgart striker, Serhou Guirassy, who's got quite a low release clause at around 17 million euros. He is a player that Manchester United have looked at. Central defence as well is another area that potentially United could look at as well. Jean-Claire Todibo, we talked about him in the summer when potentially Harry Maguire was going to leave the club. He was one of the options that United were looking at. Harry Maguire ended up staying, but the interest has remained. It's just whether Nice would, be agreeable to do a deal in January, particularly they're near the top of the French league just now, and whether United will be able to afford a valuation that would probably be quite high, especially when Manchester United come to town. These foreign clubs think, you know what, we can charge what we want here. So maybe, rather like last January, they might go into the loan market. You remember last January, Wout Weghorst came in, Marcel Sabitzer came in, and even at the back end of the summer, when Manchester United did the bulk of their transfer business, even towards the end of that, the last couple of signings, Sofian Amrabat and Sergio Reguilon, they were both on loan. And the player that they did bring in very late was only a £5 million signing in the goalkeeper Altay Bayindir. That shows the financial situation that United find themselves in, hence why they might need to go into the loan market to bring players in.
Right, I want to throw some United names at you.
Yeah.
Varane, what's going on with him?
Right, he's entered the final year of his contract. He's got 6 months left. So as of yesterday, he can talk to clubs outside England. United do have the option of extending that deal by a further year. As it stands, they're unlikely to do that on the current terms. Does that mean that Raphael Varane is facing an exit of Manchester United? Not necessarily.
But a pay cut.
Potentially. Manchester United are in talks with Raphael Varane and his representatives over a new longer-term contract, but obviously at reduced terms. Now, people would say, why would Raphael Varane stay if he's going to be paid less than what he is now? Because the way to look at it is he going to get the amount of money he's on now as a 30-year-old if he was to go elsewhere? Or is he thinking maybe a little bit more security and still playing at a top club like Manchester United and getting an extended contract, albeit at lesser money? That is an option that will have crossed his mind, and Erik ten Hag still sees Varane as part of his plans.
All right, on that note then, someone else who's on gazillions, Casemiro. What's going on with him?
Lots of speculation over his future, but he's unlikely to leave this transfer window amid all of the clubs that are interested in him. And on the flip side of it, Ten Hag has actually been talking up the return of Casemiro. He's been injured for the majority of this season, but has said come mid-January, we'll have the likes of Casemiro and Mason Mount back, and that will help United for the rest of the season. So he's actually planning for Casemiro to be there until the end of the season. And if you look at his contract situation, it's not as pressurised as the Raphael Varane situation, because he's still got 2.5 years left on his deal with the option of a further year.
Martial.
This is another situation. He has entered the final year of his contract. And what he does have in common with Raphael Varane is that it's unlikely that Manchester United will trigger the one-year option. But what he doesn't have in common with Raphael Varane is there doesn't seem to be any talk at the moment over an extension of that contract. And I think if Manchester United receive a suitable offer for him in this transfer window, then I think it would be considered.
Darren, he always gets pelters, doesn't he, Martial? Would you let him go?
Yeah, I think so. I think I don't think it's worked for Martial. I think maybe first or second season that he was in the team, he scored a fair few goals, 17, 18 Premier League goals. And you just, when he's on it, when he's on playing to his full potential, sometimes he looks unstoppable, but that is very, very rare. I think if they don't have a replacement or someone that they can come in and not be a like-for-like replacement, someone to fill that void, then he's going to stay. He's going to have to stay just to keep numbers. We've spoken about the injury problems to a certain extent. Me and Dharm was talking off air. He was a lot more passionate than I was in terms of the injury crisis. But yeah, there was, you know, if they haven't got a direct replacement for Martial, then he will be staying put. But for me, I'm looking to replace him as soon as possible.
Well, Dharmesh has mentioned the constraints they've got under them at the moment they're facing. That said, any chance United can get into the top four or challenge for the top four this season?
I mean, it's going to be difficult given the way the league is, the way some of the teams are. Even the two teams that are playing tonight, Brighton and West Ham, they'll be looking to say, if Manchester United can, why can't we? I think they go through periods, didn't they, where they drew to Liverpool. Everyone said they were back. Then they lost to Nottingham Forest at the weekend. Beat Aston Villa. They're so inconsistent at the moment that you'd suggest that no, Champions League football is out of question at the moment. 9 points off it, I think, at present. But European football is not, depending what happens in January. The injuries coming back as well, whether they can give them a little kickstart. I think they are 2 or 3 places above probably where they should be. I think the league table is lying a little bit because they should be at 2 or 3 places below where they are, but they've managed to pick up results not playing particularly well. So on that evidence, that showing, they can get European football, but Champions League is going to be way too much.